I enjoy editing and being like, and already what was that? Having you say it and then having me repeat it and then just cutting you out so it sounds like I knew it all along. It's wonderful. I sound very smart. Thank you, Radio.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that goes at the very beginning of this episode, but you already asked me to edit. So
Oh no. Oh no. So today we are joined by Brett from the Wheel Weaves podcast again. Welcome back. Super happy to have you. I am sure we are going to have a nice, long, fruitful discussion about this chapter.
I can definitely assure you that it's going to be long and fruitful. And long. Yeah, it's going to be good.
long.
And long. Yes. I predict that somehow.
I'm excited to be back, and I'm happy that you haven't yet kicked me off your podcast forever. So.
No, we're going to keep bringing you back. You are so much fun to have on.
Yeah.
It's just always a pleasure. And I always think we come up with just like really fun content when we're hanging out with you. Plus, it's nice to see you get off a little steam with the spoilers.
Yes.
You know?
You have no idea how much like pent up spoilers I have just like sitting in me.
Because you are from the Wheel Weaves podcast.
Which is a non-spoilers
Danny, my wife,
podcast.
She's a first-time reader, so like zero spoilers. And we're actually going to be done The Shadow Rising really soon. Like in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Nice. What is she thinking about The Shadow Rising?
It's super good. She loves a lot of it. She's not a huge Perrin fan, but she's starting to like Perrin come out of his shell a little bit, because in TSR, like that's really when Perrin starts to like be something special and like take charge of things.
Right.
So, yeah. And we just got past the point where the tower is now officially broken. It's crazy.
Woo! God, wow. It's amazing that we go from TSR to where it's broken to Egwene's Amerlin. Everything changes so quickly in these books. Yeah, so fast. All right, well, let's dig into this chapter, shall we?
Let's do it.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
At first, Perrin did not look down slope toward where he would ride, where he should have gone with Rand this morning. Instead, he sat his saddle at the edge of the wagons and sent his eyes anywhere else, though the view everywhere made him want to sick up. It was like being hit in the belly with a hammer. Hammer stroke. 19 fresh graves atop a squat hill to the east. 19 Two Rivers men who would never see home again. A blacksmith seldom had to see people die because of his decisions. At least the Two Rivers men had obeyed his orders. There would have been more graves, otherwise. Hammer stroke. Rectangles of newly turned earth blanketed the next slope over from that as well. Near to 100 Maenners and more Cairhienin, who had come to Dumai's wells to die. Never mind causes or reasons. They had followed Perrin, Abara. Hammer stroke. The ridge face to the west seemed solid graves, maybe 1,000 or more. 1,000 Aiel buried standing upright to face each sunrise. 1,000. Some were maidens. The men tied his stomach in knots. The women made him want to sit down and cry. He tried telling himself they had all chosen to be there, that they had to be there. Both things were true. But he had given the orders, and that made the responsibility for those graves his. Not Rand's, not the Aes Sedai's. His.
It's a really intense reading.
Yeah.
It's a very intense reading. The guilt of Perrin on being a battle leader. It's why he doesn't want to be anything more than a blacksmith. Like, this right there is why he always says, don't call me a lord, all I want to do is be a blacksmith. These deaths are on his conscience.
And I mean, that's in some way a mark of a good leader, where you want your general to be, not wanting to throw the lives away of his men, right? So
For sure. And he still frames it in terms of blacksmithing stuff, right? He's trying to reconcile his blacksmith inclinations and his blacksmith nature with all this violence. He's hammer stroke, right?
Yeah.
Hammering, and then we have the hammer stroke thunder at the beginning of Gathering Storm. Like, in many ways, the Gathering Storm is an echo of this war, right? The last battle is an echo of this battle. Here's the hammer strokes starting in Perrin's soul, then becoming part of the clouds, and then, Ma'alanir and all that other stuff.
Well, and these are the hammer strokes of life that are forging him into the leader he needs to be for the last battle.
Yeah.
He is the steel being forged. So those hammer strokes, those emotional blows.
A large part of
Forging
this
him.
entire chapter is just them, like, everybody collectively thinking, like, I hope this never happens again on this scale because this was terrible. And it's like, this is small fries to what we're going to see.
Right.
Got bad news for you guys.
Yeah, sorry, but
I was going to ask, though, is this the first time we see the actual burial rites of the Aiel? Like, I don't remember ever seeing it with the whole buried standing upright.
yeah,
like,
I
I
think
don't
this is
remember-
the only time we see it. Ever.
Yeah.
This is the one time, I think. I looked it up one time for a friend, and pretty sure this is the only instance we get.
That's what I was thinking. It's a unique one. Like, standing upright in the ground is quite a large...
It's also like a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's a deep hole.
a deep
as
hole.
opposed to
Like,
doing
as
a
morbid as
trench.
that is, but
It's like, it's a lot of work.
yeah.
Right. Well, the question is, I mean, are you going 6 feet down and then another 6 feet down?
Well, you're probably
I would
doing mass burial, like mass
Ooh.
grave at this point, right? I'd have to imagine if you're burying
True,
1,000.
right. Yeah.
But I don't know enough about this topic to actually offer more.
I mean, it's just, it's rough. It's rough
Yeah.
to see these funeral rites. You know, the singing, I think, is particularly haunting.
Oh, yeah. The lyrics to that is like,
I wanted to ask, when it says it's sung in parts, is that like row, row, row your boat?
yeah, I think so.
Where one starts,
Each verse.
but each verse overlaps?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
starting like half verses apart. That was always how I interpreted that, because that way you don't have to like be a musician and like know pitch and have practiced it. You just come in on the next pass of the refrain in this like overall chant that everyone's doing. Kind of like a drum circle, but like better.
That, like, I didn't even pick that up, and that makes it way more haunting than originally what I thought. Because just, like, repetitive.
I hadn't actually thought about what that implied until I said it out loud. So I'm discovering that
I
with you
think
guys.
you hit it on the
Yeah.
head there. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it is.
But I'd love to get, like, what is it, 8 lines, 8 different people starting them one line after the other in the same room, and get, like, an actual, like, row, row, row your boat chorus going on.
We need a tune for it then. Because Row 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 Your Boat might not fit the cage.
No, it
might
probably
need a
doesn't fit,
different
but...
one. Twinkle Twinkle Little Star?
I think just
AKA
a
the
chant.
alphabet?
I think maybe if we just we create a canonical chant that everyone then
yeah,
has to
just
follow, just like one recording that then everybody
Where are
recorded.
my show notes? I
How
need
many
to write
people are
this
in
down.
Discord right now? We get everybody jump in. We do a quick thing.
I'm just saying, I have a plan for this. Maybe I will record myself saying it, send that out, and see who can match it, and that way everyone is matching one single cadence, and then have everyone listen and sing it along to it, and then I can edit that together into a sort of cascading rhythm.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a note in my thing. Lillian is jumping up and down in chat. We will coordinate an opportunity for people who want to participate to participate. We will make that happen somehow. We will coordinate this. There is a note.
Okay.
We will figure this out.
Good.
We
Good.
have the
Lil Jen,
technology.
you are
We
on.
have the
Yep.
fans. Like, we're gonna do this.
But I guess like maybe a radio. Would you like to read it? Just we've
yeah.
been talking about it for a while.
Life is a dream that knows no shade. Life is a dream of pain and woe. A dream from which we pray to wake. A dream from which we wake and go. Who would sleep when the new dawn waits? Who would sleep when the sweet winds blow? A dream must end when the new day comes. This dream from which we wake and go.
I mean, it ties into the whole idea that life is a dream and that eventually it dies, but also the idea that like dreaming isn't the real world and you really do want to wake up at some point.
Well, that's also a row, row, row your boat reference too, by the way. Life is but a dream.
Holy
What?
shit, it is.
Wait a minute.
That's what that song's about, right?
Robert.
Yeah.
Robert.
Yeah,
What have
so
you
up
done?
the stream, that's basically the wheel of time, the pattern turning out the lace of the ages, right? The stream is just the lace of ages.
Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Life is but a dream.
All right. Figured
Row
it
your
out,
boat
guys.
up the
There you
stream. Yep.
Damn.
go. I don't know what we figured out, but we figured it out.
It's the secret to the universe, for sure.
Well, and I also love the idea of the the song sung in parts that when you get to the end you just start back over again because it's a wheel.
And then also, like, it's about water and boats, which are things that the Aiel have nothing to do with, like, very explicitly.
point.
So that
Yeah,
just, like,
yeah.
makes it even more wibbly wobbly, wheelie dealy.
Wait, are you talking about this chant or row your boat or
Yes,
just the same thing?
both.
Yes.
Yes.
Fair.
Yes. I mean, we'll have to study it further with all of our, dedicated Wheel of Time musicologists. But we'll get to the bottom of this.
The next thing I had after that is Perrin saying any sane man wanted to live and run as far as he could from battle, run as hard as he could. And this is after Perrin just led a huge army into a mass of, it's just Perrin thinking he's a coward and then leading a bunch of people.
It's very Elaine of him.
Yeah. It's very mad of him, frankly.
No, Matt doesn't question his own... Well, no, Perrin's not questioning his bravery. Elaine questions her bravery. Matt questions his sanity. Perrin questions his sanity. But yeah, it's all of them, right? That whole generation of them has a thing with not realizing why they do what they do consciously.
And what follows seems to be a bit of just a summary of the battle and where people stand. Sort of really soaking in the aftermath of what happens when you turn a mass of earth and bodies into chum.
Because it's been a day.
I do want to point out two of the reactions. One is Aram, who apparently is grinning from what Perrin can see, which is like Aram's decline. We already got last chapter, if I remember correctly. He had some weird things to say about having all the Aes Sedai killed. I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was the last one.
Yeah, because I just skimmed it.
He was the one who was like, yeah, they should just die. And he never had any emotional variation at all. He's just like, they should die.
And
they
like
need
here,
to die.
looking at the aftermath of all this battle, like we can see the decline of what Aram is becoming and is going to become further down the road too.
Yeah, he's finding delight in killing, and that's when he should throw his sword away.
Yes.
Right.
That's the advice.
If he were to leave his sword at Dumai's Wells, he might have managed to come back around, but it doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
No, his is a fairly tragic tale, I think.
Extremely.
Yeah. And then the other one I just wanted to mention, we kind of talked about it already, was Perrin is reading Loial's lips when Loial's like, light, let me never see the like again. And that was what I was talking about, was like, bad news bears. This is like the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a lot of this.
Like you and your new wife are going to wade right into something like this as part of the last battle. Like, you will see the
and,
like.
I mean, in the scale of this universe, there really hasn't been a power-filled battle to this scale at all since probably I would assume like the Trolloc Wars are around there. Even I can't imagine like Arthur Hawkwing's reign like against the White Tower would be to this devastate. Like the Aes Sedai aren't doing this. I can't imagine them doing this kind of thing. So
No.
And Arthur Hawkwing was always in a siege. He never attacked. There was never battle.
Yeah. So
Right.
like nothing has ever been seen like that ever.
Not since the breaking of the world and the War of Power.
Right. Yeah, maybe the Trolloc Wars, they had Dreadlords, they had Aes Sedai fighting, so there was definitely power used in battle during Trolloc Wars.
Yeah, because against Shadowspawn is okay.
And not against this many people. Like, against Trollocs is one thing, you can kind of like, oh, they're monsters, they're not human, right? But this is like straight up just people you have a large... I'm going to trivialize this. They're just people you have a disagreement with.
yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, right? They're people.
Absolutely.
Very much.
Right, and under other circumstances, they could be your allies in the fight against the Dark One.
Yeah. And for a lot of them, they used to be allies in some
sense. Right. I mean, the Shido certainly were part of the Aiel, right?
Yeah.
They should absolutely have been on Rand's side if... Couladin. Asmodean. Yeah. Land fear! It goes all the way back.
It really does. It really does. Which really means it's all about Luce Theron.
It's all
really
about
blame
Luce.
It all on Luce Theron. Mm-hmm. The original Luce Theron. Not LTT in Rand's head. Original Luce Theron. It's all his fault. Because we're going with Lanfear being, not having any agency in this.
Among the dead are 3 Aes Sedai corpses.
I highlighted that too.
From which faction are they, and who are they? Well, I couldn't figure out, because it seems like all 9 of the rebel Aes Sedai survive, right? They don't go in with 12, right?
Correct.
Only the 9 that show up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So none of them die. We're sure about that. So it has to be of the 39 Tower Aes Sedai who are kidnapping Rand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Plus the half a dozen dead warders, like, probably related to the 3 Aes Sedai.
Right, yeah. We don't know if any of them... It's interesting that none of the Rebel Aes Sedai, we don't think any of them lose warders, right?
No, not as far as I know.
Man, they really escaped without a scratch. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I guess just being the only channelers, sort of they didn't get close enough to the Ashaman to really deal with that effect, and then being channelers in among the Aiel and taking them by surprise from behind, and being more skilled than the Wise Ones, and having the Wise Ones on their side, all of those things, I guess, could lead to them doing fairly well.
Well, they were basically inside a ring of steel blasting a path ahead, right?
Right.
With magic.
Right.
So that makes it really unlikely that anyone's going to get to them or their immediate bodyguards because they are in the center of this, like, larger embedded force.
Barring Tavir and Stray Arrow.
Right, which in this case, they were right behind Perrin. So
Right.
these stray arrows are going to all stay stray.
I imagine Perrin was definitely like the bow of a ship breaking the water, and just like everything, him and Loial and Aram, and then everything just parting around them.
Cinematically, that's going to be an amazing scene. Just
Yeah.
watching First Contact.
Oh, bad news. They're actually cutting Dumai Wells out of the show. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, I figured, right? Like,
not
it's not.
important. Yeah.
That's not that important. Yeah, it's not. It's,
It's completely irrelevant.
that wouldn't change the story in the slightest. For budgetary reasons, it makes sense.
Because nobody likes to see large battle scenes. It's like the last thing anybody wants to see in TV shows.
No one talks about the Battle of the Bastards.
They're just going to have all the Shido,
yeah.
like, run into the dark, and then, like, they're all going to die in the darkness ahead. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, the Waygates will just,
But then they'll all be around when Samael comes back with the box to
Right.
put them through the gateways, right? Even though they've already died in the darkness.
Correct.
And, there is actually a bit of that in Dumai's Wells where you're like, wait, didn't they kill all the Shido? Why are there all these Shidos still around? Like, they're like, there's just a lot of Shido,
Yes, yeah.
But there is that moment where it's like, wait, they ran into a meat grinder. Why are there all these Shido? Like, not only that, but then they got split up and, like, put in front of other armies and run over and killed, and it's like there shouldn't be any Shido left, but they're just so many to start with.
Was it like
faction
40,000?
gets smaller and smaller.
I can't remember.
I think at the start of Dumai's Wells, yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, even if they killed 10,000 of them, that's still 30,000.
Still a
people.
lot. That's a huge army. So
Right. And we get what do they say? 1,000 Aiel.
yes, yeah.
So that would be on Perrin's side.
yes. I also wanted to point out that the phrase broken earth is in this.
Ooh. Where?
A seething sea of black, vultures and ravens and crows in tens of thousands, swirling up in waves and settling again, concealing the broken earth. This means nothing, but I like it anyway.
Well, it's a reference to the other podcast we did, so definitely bringing that up.
Yeah, it has no relevance at all to Broken Earth. I can make no connection to the series in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing like this in that series. I mean, aside from the part where the capital city gets thrown into a volcano. Spoilers. But that happens in the prologue, so.
I mean, there's a lot of things being thrown into volcanoes and prologues in these series.
It's true. That is kind of similar.
It's a good plot device. It works. Lord of the Rings was the original. I don't know. I'm just
That's true.
Gonna throw that out there.
That's actually extremely true.
It just took them 3 books to get through the prologue, where they put things in the volcano.
One very long prologue.
That's all it was. I mean, if you look at the way Tolkien writes, kind of, yeah.
Yes.
That's really where Jordan got his love of prologues. Is he thought that the whole Tolkien storyline was just a prologue to the actual story. It's like, oh yeah, I'll tell the story where things get the power thing gets thrown in a volcano, and I'll do that in 10 pages, and then tell what happens afterwards. And that is a little bit about sort of Jordan's philosophy was like, I don't want to tell the story where someone's like, oh, you have to rescue the world, and everyone's like, all right, let's go.
I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going on an adventure. He wants to tell the story where it's like you have to save the world, and I was like, what?
And it's
Why?
like,
No!
excuse me, no.
No, I want some power. I'll take some money. I'll take some girls, but saving the world, no, thank you.
Right?
Yeah,
Because that's realistically what would happen. Yeah. And that scene with just all the black ravens, all the black-coated Ashaman, and then Rand in his white tattered shirt, just like shining like a beacon. Again, just the visual in my head that Jordan puts in is so good.
Yeah. Oh, but check out what's in chat. Wind Blows Over the Wall, one of my brown members, says they have 100,000 Shido at Malden later. So 40,000 at the Wells would only be a quarter of the Shido. That makes no sense. They must have had more Shido at Dumai's Wells.
Well, don't forget, a bunch of them are threatening Kyrien to keep Rand's warriors in check there.
So there's another reason why you have so many Shido later, is because they only had like a quarter of their force in this battle.
That's what I would assume.
This doesn't actually dent them population-wise that badly. I mean, it does, but not badly, which is awful to say, but...
Again, we're talking
that's
about
the numbers Jordan gave
war
us,
casualties, so...
It's like death by 1,000 cuts for the Shido. Like, he's just like, I'm going to shave off this 100,000.
Except it's death by 1,000 deaths.
Well, and it's funny you guys bring that up, too, because Perrin has that thought process at the beginning of this chapter, just to bring it back to, like, page 1, because we haven't really made it far enough. Go back to the beginning of this chapter. But
you have stepped on a tangent. Go back to the chapter header.
It's like a freaking choose your own adventure here. I was the worst at those. Anyways, no time for that now. My point was...
and don't call me Shirley.
Yeah. But Perrin thinks about the fact that, like, the 19 Two Rivers men who died, that was, like, worth it because their deaths prevented even more deaths. So it's like, you got to trade off, like, you're going to lose people, so where are you losing numbers? Right? And that's the strategic mindset that I would assume you'd have to kind of have.
It comes in with Rand's quote later where he says, they've left me no good decisions.
Yeah.
Right? Like, any decision I make is going to be bad. All I have to do is minimize the bad.
Yeah.
And, like, that's what I'm trying to do, is minimize the bad. But that's all I can do. I can't make this situation right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the lesser sadness. It's not a good time to be in charge of armies during the end of the world, apparently.
So I think Taim is trying to pull a Melar, which is, hey, I rescued you, now make me your advisor and get even closer to you.
Or more accurately, take my minions, because he tries to put forward two people who he later sends to kill him.
Yes.
So, it's the same thing, but by proxy.
Yeah.
Right. Almost every Ashaman that Taim's names here is a dark friend.
No one achieves the dragon aside from Logain, who isn't one of Taim's lackeys.
Right.
That includes everyone here, because Logain's not here.
And that's why he's so insistent that Rand takes an Ashaman with him, because all the Ashaman are dark friends.
And then he takes the one person who Taim's not really sure about, because he's actually a Forsaken.
Shoot. It's a really interesting reaction that Taim has to the whole Rand picking Deshiva, where he's like, the surprise.
Do you think Taim knows Deshiva is Osengar?
No. He just knows that he's not the usual run of dark friend that he's managed to recruit otherwise. That's what I think.
Does he know that Deshiva is a dark friend?
So it's an interesting take, because it's like, it's Taim who promotes his buddies who are dark friends. He promotes them to the full Ajaman. But then how does Deshiva slip through and get the pin if he doesn't know that he's at least a dark friend? So
right.
It's hard to say.
So I'm assuming that Deshiva, as Osengar, shows up the same as Halima, Arengar, and gives some sign that says, I'm a high-ranking dark friend. But then just never quite fits into the hierarchy quite right, and just sort of gives Taim this weird feeling, but he knows he's a dark friend and he can work with him, but like he's not really sure of him. So that's why he's
Fair.
like any other Ashaman, because I'm sure of all the other guys. I'm not sure about this guy. This guy's on playing his own game, I think.
Not to mention, Deshiva's just kind of awkward, right? Like, he's
really
a scientist.
He's not good at playing a different character than himself at all.
Which kind of works here because he is so unusual that it's like he's not acting, he's just being himself.
Yeah. He's just like, I don't know what to do. I'm an awkward geneticist thrown into battle.
And I guess that makes sense why Taim is like surprised, but not necessarily super pissed off that Rand chose him, because it's like, well, I guess it works.
He's at least one of the dark friends. Like, he is, but just he's not under my control in the same way that everybody else is. Yeah.
I wanted to ask why Rand picked him and why Rand is surprised that he picked him.
I think that's Taviran. Like, that is, we joke about Taviran, but that is Taviran. Yeah. I mean, he pointed at random. It's like the same thing when both Matt and Rand pick the symbol on the stone, the portal stone, where he's like, it's got to work for me sometime. Right? and that's he picks something at random, and that's something that Matt has figured out how to take much better advantage of. But here, Rand actually accidentally takes advantage of the randomness of ta'veren by pointing at a random ta'veren who happens to be Dashiva.
Which, I mean, randomness doesn't necessarily equate to the goodness of the decision, because is it good that you just picked a Forsaken to be, to be the guy?
I mean, honestly, I think that picking the guy who's playing his own solo game badly is probably better than someone who's actually got orders and a plan from someone who's competent like Taim. So I think Rand did pick the best of a bad option, because Taim gave him literally nothing but poisonous options.
Yeah, and it all comes full circle after Dashiva tries to kill him and all that, so...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if there were women, I would say Rand sensed that he was like the most powerful channeler or something like that, and pointed to him that way. But there's no way to sense how powerful a channeler is, or any affinity or anything like that with
Only
the male
when they're
channelers.
holding the power or using
Right.
it. That's the only time they can measure it. Yeah, it's not innate and constant like with women.
So I was trying to make some connection there, but nope.
ta'veren,
Nothing.
you got it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Strong ta'verening, because the pattern was like, nope, Jesus is taking the wheel. We are not having you pick anyone else, which is why I figured that Osengar was the best choice, because otherwise why would ta'veren have intervened?
Right. I mean, or maybe, I was going to say maybe there's some reason he needed the Forsaken knowledge around him, but I can't think of any reason. Dashiva is definitely one of the bigger red herrings, because I'm like, you keep expecting him to, he's right there doing something with Rand, manipulating him, and you're just like,
And then he just gets
something.
Elsa
And he
just
fireballed. Yeah. He's
So
like,
much
oh
fun.
yeah, he's just a little dark friend. He's not really that important. If he was a Forsaken, I would never balefire him.
Right,
So
right.
that actually supports the theory that Taim thinks he's just a normal dark friend, because that appears to be what he's posing as. Mm-hmm. Just a very odd one.
high ranking enough to not have to take shit, but like not anything special.
Right. I noticed that both Sulin and Nadera, the two maidens who were the head of the maidens, are both not leaving Rand's side. Speaking of Taim not leaving Rand's side, he's also got Sulin and Nadera right there.
They stick to him
and they have a
like
whole
glue.
and they have a whole network of maidens surrounding Rand at all
Yeah,
times, just
yeah.
not obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, they trust nothing. There's a really good tableau later that, again, really visually appealing, where it's like him sitting down and then them flanking him and Min at his feet, and it feels very like classical Renaissance painting. And if they don't
I can
put
see
that
that.
scene in the show, then I will be sad, because it's really pretty.
Yeah, I mean, even what Rand is doing here, and you can see the effects of, like, Nandera and Sulin and the Wise Ones clearly not liking what Rand is doing as he's counting the bodies of all the women. He's, like, taking tabs, and he wants to know the names and who they are so he can put them on his list, and they're, like, arguing with him. That's one of the things that we've kind of talked about. It's like, this is through Perrin's eyes, and he doesn't really know what's going on, but we can kind of take a step back and figure that out too. At least that's my interpretation.
I mean, he knows what's going on, but he doesn't want to be up close to it.
Yeah. It's
Right.
like, I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but, that's his deal. He's got to deal with it, so.
But Rand has quite the procession out there with him. He's got, like, Dobrain with 200 Kyrianen, Javi and Norella with however many are left of the Mayenners, which I assume is a few hundred. And then you've got Mazrim Taim with 100 Ashaman, and scores of maidens, and more Siswayaman, and several dozen wise ones. Like, this is like 1,000-person procession marching around like this charnel ground of a day-old battlefield. Like, that is nasty and upsetting and just so incongruous, right? Because a lot of them look like they battle dirty, but like they've had a day. Mm-hmm. So they're walking through just this absolute destruction, looking like just they're on parade. I mean, not nice parade, but.
And Perrin has seen death, but there's a difference between death and getting torn apart by axes and swords and spears death and the one power death. Like, it's just different levels of body and gore. And of course, the one thing that we're all dancing around is Rand is looking at those bodies because he's looking for maidens who have died.
Yeah.
Right, he's trying to count every single maiden who died, and It's funny how Perrin thinks like, well, maybe Rand didn't even need deliverance by the time we showed up, and it's like, oh no, he needed you to show up.
Definitely.
For sure. Like, that definitely needed to happen.
Not by the time he got to the center, but he needed you to show up on the outskirts.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Because I don't think... Because the battle starts before... Let me rephrase that. Rand's knots don't get tied off in the beginning of the battle. I feel like that doesn't happen until Perrin shows up with the wolves and the Ashaman show up as well.
That would make sense. It's not right away.
And that was based on them having to like pull Aes Sedai away from blocking him, correct?
Right.
So they needed such a large force to be actually an issue to have the Aes Sedai who were blocking him to be pulled away into something like more important.
Right. And I feel like that wouldn't have happened even with the initial Shido attack. I feel like it didn't happen until things got really crazy.
Yeah. You're like, oh fuck, there's wolves. Then you're
right,
like...
exactly.
Yeah. Plus, like, what happened in the immediate aftermath really needed Perrin there to, like, keep Rand from going all the way to Natron's Barrow in one afternoon.
Right.
So, you know, Perrin needed to be there, even though he's downplaying it in this internal thought. It's like, oh no, Perrin, every one of those deaths was necessary to get you there to rescue Rand from his own rescuers.
Right after this, sort of, we get a flashback to Perrin, to last night, basically Perrin coming upon Rand.
Right, and he thinks of that because the Aes Sedai are doing the whole haughtiness, basically, about that Aes Sedai do. And that's kind of why he's like, I know, I'm protecting Rand's secrets from your nosy nobleness.
Right.
And,
get out.
Yeah. And then that makes him think about like what he is protecting for Rand. And it's this really, really messed up trauma scene where Rand is actually like really fucked up.
Karuna in particular is like coming from this background of arrogance and nobleness where she's able to just stick her nose into anything she wants. Like that's her personality. And he talks about how becoming an Aes Sedai even makes it more accentuated, right? She's the worst. And so anyway.
Well, it's the expectation of being listened to regardless of who she's talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Whether it's Rand, and she is the one who keeps pushing Rand and pushing Rand and pushing Rand until he finally was like, no, you are going to be serving the wise ones, and you have to ask their permission to piss.
Yeah.
Yeah, which she completely deserves after being so pushy so much.
Right.
Like,
and you can kind of see Karuna being like progressively pushier and pushier this entire chapter, and finally Perrin's like shuts it down too, because he has that little spat with him, and Loial's like, oh my god, don't do it.
that's fun.
Right. But it's like just like poking the Perrin, poking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to see what he's made of. It's such a bullshit way to approach people.
Yeah.
And I love the progression of Perrin's thoughts here. It's like, I don't want to be leadership. I don't want to deal with this stuff. And then he's like, uses a tone with the Aes Sedai that even a king or a queen wouldn't use. And then he goes, I have a few things to say to you. And then like, really, you know, and like sometimes that's all you want out of your leader is to confront the people in power and have them speak with your voice. And I think that's a lot of what Perrin is doing here, is getting up in the Aes Sedai's face and giving voice to what the Two Rivers men and women are thinking.
But yeah, we don't see Rand actually deeply in his trauma very often. We see it occasionally on screen, but this is like he's so like, I have to be Steel, Quendiar, blah blah blah. Like, this is why he thinks he has to be like that, because he's super traumatized, and like LTT is coming through, and Perrin is like, I can protect you by bearing witness and then being silent, and that's it.
This reminds me a lot, both in two scenes, one that we've seen and one that's coming up. The scene where Rand channels in the mountains for one of the first times, and he can't control it, and he nearly he kills. He nearly brings the mountain down. And hurts the one woman who gets the bloody face, who ends up dying later.
Yeah, the Tinker Woman.
The Tinker Woman. Yeah, but he doesn't kill her. But that. And same thing. Perrin comes upon him, and he's weeping and sobbing and frustrated, and that he can't control the power, and worried. And also then later on we see Perrin there witnessing Veins of Gold.
Yeah.
And so Perrin very much is a witness to Rand's trauma in a way that almost no other character is.
Yeah. even more than Rand is, almost. Like,
Almost,
in some
yeah.
ways, he's
I mean,
more
Rand lives
present.
it,
Like,
but-
Rand's like in this like traumatized, dissociating place, right? Perrin, especially with Veins of Gold, Perrin's witnessing something that like Rand is beyond. I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I was just thinking like, man, Perrin just like is this silent like shoulder for Rand to cry on. Does he get to see anything good? Yes, he gets to see Veins of Gold. So that's good.
Yeah, and I mean, you even get to see that in Perrin's thought process, where his thought process of Rand going down this slope of darkness, like in this chapter specifically, he's thinking he just needs to last long enough, and then he like kind of berates himself for thinking that's my friend, but I just need him to stay sane long enough, and then he can die, right?
Which is a great reflection of Rand's thinking about how he's going to use Perrin no matter what.
Yeah.
He has to, just for the sake of the world. And the fact that both of them think that way and then immediately feel bad about thinking that way,
But it's
it
like,
just shows you like
they're not wrong,
but
though, right?
They're not wrong. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to kind of think that way. Yeah.
And that's the hard part to wrestle with. Is like, even as a reader, it's like, yeah, we need Rand to stay sane long enough to do what he has to do, and then afterwards, it's like, now you can, now you can die or whatever the result is. So, yeah.
There's a lot of sort of that theme in this book of just like making the best of a really bad situation.
Yeah.
And doing what you can to survive and move forward.
Well, and that's the thing. Like in real life, it's not necessarily like there's a right answer and a wrong answer. It's like they're shades of gray, and it's like two bad options, and I got to pick one anyways. So
That's why I prefer math, physics.
there
You
is
can
a right
assume a
answer.
spherical cow. Yeah.
Assume a frictionless surface with no air.
Yeah. And then there are perfect answers, because you assume once you assume a perfect world, there are perfect solutions to that perfect world. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, and it's super productive for making the world a better place and maintaining healthy relationships.
Physics? I mean, kind of.
But that's none of
I'm
my
not sure.
business.
Seth is confused.
I am confused.
Don't mind me.
Fair enough.
Next thing I have is about the fucking spend all your arrows on shooting at some of the carrion birds,
Yeah.
which is
This
just
is
like,
the worst. Okay.
Why would you
Aes Sedai
suggest that?
hypocrisy here. Use all the men to shoot all the arrows at all the birds, which there's like tens of thousands of. And it's like,
Right.
you could take a lead and start blasting. Like, if you really want them gone, you could start like lightning bolting and fireballing them out of the sky too. You could take a lead on it if you want that to happen.
Or just channel air, break necks, right? Like it seems
you
like
go.
that would like
Get
yeah,
creative.
really right.
But that's just like, again, the Aes Sedai like poking, right? Poking Perrin.
Yeah, right.
Where it's like, are they really intending him to do that? Probably not.
Probably not. And it doesn't make sense for many reasons. The first of all is, there's more arrows than birds. Like,
Yeah.
we need those arrows in case we get the Shido come back, right? Like,
Yeah, like there's
still
1,000 reasons
40,000
not
of them, yeah.
And
Yeah,
even
right.
Perrin thinks that is like, even if we get like 99% of them, there's still 1,000 birds who are going to report, and we don't know which ones. So,
Right.
But that's why it's not. I don't feel that's a real request. That's just like a poke the Perrin. So
If only he was actually speaking to bears, then
Right.
we could let's poke the wolf, not poke the bear. Half the Mayanners died. That's a pretty significant number.
That's yeah. So yeah, when they say the remaining Mayanners, it's half
Half.
of the Mayanners.
Which is amazing that only 19 of the Two Rivers men died, which I would attribute to them being bowmen and staying further
Right.
Sure,
back.
yeah.
Exactly. And do we believe Karuna? That's a question I wanted to ask. Because do we believe Karuna? Do we believe that that they really didn't tell Perrin that there was a tactical problem with his plan and all of that bullshit? I just Okay.
It is the truth. They did have to wade into battle in order to use the one power.
Yeah.
That is technically the truth.
technically the truth, yeah.
There's a lot more going on behind that than, she's avoiding saying a lot of things, which is why didn't they tell him beforehand?
I mean, like, I was going to say that 100%. Like, if you are actually concerned, you know the rules, tell Perrin so you can incorporate that into the plan. So,
Yeah. And then, of course, come up with an excuse to force yourself into the middle of battle to get to Rand first, so that he then has to be thankful to you for saving him, not to Perrin for saving him, which then allows you to manipulate him into being your allies and ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba, you know, like,
Posturing and
it's, yeah,
positioning.
absolutely, absolutely. It's all about being in the right place at the right time to get what they want and to manipulate Rand.
Yeah. I'm nodding.
And that's why this swearing fealty is so important. And that was obviously before swearing fealty.
Yeah.
You know, that was before Nine Aes Sedai knelt and history was changed forever. Although it does take quite a bit of convincing to keep them on track with those oaths. Did you swear an oath or not?
It takes them days to figure out what it means. Like, there's a scene
Right.
later when they finally resolve exactly how literal that oath is going to bind them with their other oath. Like, it takes them a long time to work through all the implications.
And I imagine a lot of that has to do with this scene and what Rand basically comes down on them hard. And they're like, wait, is there any way we can get out of this? Like, this seems not okay. And they just fail miserably to get out of it.
Yep, there is no escape, but it takes them a long time to admit that.
Can I point out more annoying Aes Sedai hypocrisy type stuff?
Yes.
Do you guys want more of that? Do you like
Yes.
that?
Yes. Oh, yeah, all of it. All of it. Give me more.
So one of the funny things I always find is the amount of times that every Aes Sedai, like literally the ones we don't like to the ones we do like Moraine, where they use professions to slam people. So, for example, calling Rand like a shepherd or a farm boy in this chapter specifically, like over the course of the entire series, even here, Kern is like, oh, you know, what do you know, farm boy, right? And it's interesting because we know that they know that Perrin's like a battle commander, kind of the Lord of the Two Rivers, whatever you want to call it. And for Rand, same idea, like the Dragon Reborn, there's no respect paid there at all for their accomplishments, when Aes Sedai are the exact same kind of people who can come from any walk of life and become an Aes Sedai. Like Swan the Amerlin seat, you know, beforehand, whatever.
A true
It's
Amerlin.
Yeah, in the before time, in the long ago. But like Swan was like a, you know, I don't know what you want to call it. Like she worked on a
She's
boat
a
or something.
fisherman's
Like
daughter.
Yeah.
fisherman's daughter. Yeah,
Yeah.
like there wasn't anything special, but she became the Amerlin seat. But it's
I love you
It's
pointing
like
that out. That's such
Yeah.
a good hypocrisy that their order is proud of how much it sets aside your station in life before. And
it's
then
like
they go
technically
around.
you can come from anywhere.
Yeah, and then they go around slinging professions and backstories
Yeah.
like insults, and it's like
They also isolate themselves from those professions. It's not, unlike the kin who go back into the professions, the Aes Sedai never touch it again.
this is why the kin is a superior organization.
Nodding. Also, the lack of dark friends.
I mean, that helps.
Good filtering.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely limitations to the comparison. But
Yeah. No, I always like every time that I see it's like, oh, farm boy and oh, shepherd or whatever. So backcountry folk. It's all bad.
It's almost like conservatives saying pull yourself up by the bootstraps and then
Yeah.
calling a certain congresswoman a bartender all the time.
almost exactly like, how dare she actually succeed at a system that's rigged to not work?
Yeah.
Have you tried being born into money? Hello.
Right.
I mean, yes, it's working out well.
You know, every congressman out there works some crappy summer job, and we're not like, oh, that lifeguard who went on to become congressman. You know, and it's like, yes, he worked as a lifeguard for a while, but that's still not what you are. Yeah.
Also, like, no shade to bartenders because they're awesome.
Yeah. And probably better at their job and work harder than almost anybody else in
Yeah,
this
probably
world.
you could plop
Yeah.
a bartender into most jobs and they would do a better job than the person currently doing it. Just
Or they'd give it 150%.
Yeah. And still be working less hard than they would behind the bar.
yeah.
Dealing with your drunk ass. Trust me, not fun.
Yeah. But I mean, but that also gets into the whole, like, Aes Sedai hate Wilders for the most part and that whole discrimination. Like, there's a whole nother section that we don't got time for, but...
No. Well, and that actually carries down to the kin. So even though you call the kin the superior organization, the kin are basically like Wilders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Superior doesn't mean ideal.
No. Words to live by.
It's kind of like the whole, you know, there's two bad options.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lesser of two evils.
Very much so. The
Right,
less
very much
evil
so.
of two in this case.
Yeah, there's a distinction there.
So the Aes Sedai and Ashaman have a little bit of saber rattling, and Gedwin is disappointed that they back down. I'm guessing because he wanted an excuse to use lethal force.
Yes. Before that, though, there's a moment when Taim returns with Rand. And he looks over at Gedwyn, who shakes his head just a hair. A grimace flashed across Taim's face, gone as soon as it appeared.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
What was Taim... Okay, what was Taim asking, and what was Gedwyn saying no to?
Well, I think it's what I'm pointing out. It's that they back down from this brief little saber rattling thing. They don't give Gedwyn an excuse to use outsized force. And Taim was really hoping that would happen. And he's looking at Gedwyn like, did they give you anything? Is there anything I can blackmail them with? Or did you get a lever? And he's like, no, they backed down and I didn't get anything. That's what I think is happening.
Well, Gedwyn himself is an interesting character because he's the one who becomes like the second in command almost, isn't he? Like way later on, but then also gets like called a deserter because he tried to kill Rand.
Isn't he one of the ones who dies in Farmatting? Isn't Gedwyn and Rochade?
Yes, he is stabbed by the knife by Fane.
Right, yeah, because they're in Farmatting to kill him on Taim's orders after they fail to kill him in Kyrian?
Yeah, and then you're like, and it's like weird because Taim calls him a deserter to Rand, but then,
yeah.
That's a
a
cover
lie.
for Taim.
Yeah. It's just like a weird trajectory for this guy that we see here, so.
No, and there's the group of 4 men that Taim calls at the end of this chapter are the 4 who attack Rand in the palace.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just, it's like tells you these are the 4 dark friends that Taim is already relying on. They're his right-hand men.
Yeah.
And if you're paying attention when they attack, you're like, oh, those are Taim's right-hand men. Clearly, this attack was at Taim's orders. I did want to propose an alternate theory for what Taim had asked Gedwyn to look for. The little fat man Angreal that Rand had been carrying that is lost.
Oh, I like that.
And that while Taim was with Rand, distracted in the series, he said, Gedwyn, go search the luggage and see, or the battle and the wagons and see if you can find any trace of the Terran Angreal that has disappeared. Or the Angreal that has disappeared.
That makes so much sense because I'm sitting here thinking like he would be able to see for himself if lethal force had been used. He doesn't need to ask. That would be pretty obvious. So there's a big hole in my theory, and you just went and solved it.
Just a different theory.
No,
yeah.
you solved it. That has way
one.
less holes in it. Damn it.
Because I that's one of those things that I've always been like, what happened to the little fat man Angreal? And it's lost. And there is a point. It shows back up in the last books, and I feel like that's a Sanderson plot hole. Sorry, just it shows up with no explanation, right?
Agree.
Up to this point, it is lost.
It would make more sense for him to have taken it, except he didn't. He clearly didn't because
Right, or maybe it was destroyed in a lightning strike or something like that. But it makes sense that like this Angreal that Rand has been depending on, that has given him an edge over so many Forsaken, and has been taken away, like all of his other crutches, like all of his other friendships, and now he has to turn to the Choden Call or Kalendor. Because those are the only 2 other... He doesn't have just that little boost that he needs that gives him the edge. He's got to go... He's no longer got, the softcore drugs. He's got to go for the hardcore stuff,
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with all of that.
This is Rand's turn to cocaine and heroin, away from the marijuana and alcohol.
So you're saying that the Fat Man
before.
the Fat Man Angreal was the gateway Angreal?
It was a gateway drug.
It was yeah.
So not for making gateways, obviously, because that's a different thing. Clearly.
I mean, technically. Oh, okay. Wait, I have to put this on Tam jokes. Something about the gateway drug. All right, never mind. Because there's just too good of a pun there, somewhere between like gateway drugs and gateways that we travel through. I'll figure something out. By the way, if you're watching this live or it's not too late, go check out the great Tam joke competition from Malkier Talks. One of those is one of mine, so it's basically a bunch of puns competing with each other. So go vote for your favorite pun, but they're all Wheel of Time related, and there's 17 of them. Really funny. It's on Twitter.
I have somehow missed this. I am not entirely sorry because I hate puns. I love puns. I hate puns.
I got one for you. Why does Julian the thief catcher always wear striped clothes?
Why?
Because he doesn't want to be spotted.
And we're gonna kill a radio. Are you okay? I think we lost her.
I'm not okay. It's fine.
I had a pretty good one. Why is Dumai hair always soft?
Oh, I saw this one. I hate you.
Okay, go. Why?
Conditioning.
Oh my god.
It's so bad.
That's like Dark Dad.
That's bad.
Yeah, maybe. I was proud of that one. Again, I adapt them all from other places, but it's fun. So the sisters go off to talk for a while, and they shield themselves from sound. And I was curious if they were doing that because they were talking about something important, or if they were just trying to play the game and make parents suspicious that they were talking about something important.
I think they're testing what the Ashaman are going to detect.
Mm.
Like
And
seeing
it
if they
clearly
can get
works.
away
If
with
that
it.
was the plan, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
proves that they are not going to be able to get away with that.
Because
But
they
wanna
drop it
test
pretty quick, right?
Yeah,
Like almost immediately afterwards. Like it doesn't seem like it lasted a very long time.
That's what I mean by saber rattling. Like it's not really meant to do anything other than demonstrate their power, and then the Ashaman are like, and then they back down.
Gotcha.
I'm wondering what the maidens are checking in on when they come back and they communicate in hand talk. I'm wondering if they're just like basically doing the same thing as parent and taking stock of everyone, or if they have a specific thing that they're looking at.
My assumption is, based on the description of where these maidens are, one's like sitting on her heels against a wagon.
No, I
the
mean
other
before
one's
that.
playing cat's cradle. Oh, okay.
When Nandera and Sulan come up, and I guess it is just to do that, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah,
they
I
don't
think-
actually
I think they're
communicate
just-
before that. That's just what they're communicating.
Yeah, I think they're just communicating to their various hidden maidens that they're moving and to keep up with Rand and surround him in a big enough radius that he doesn't notice that they're there.
Yeah, I thought there was more going on there, but yeah, it's just distributing them. Never mind.
It's there's a lot going on this chapter. We're pausing for seconds because it's like there's just big chunks of text where a lot of people are moving around and doing a lot of things, and trying to find meaning in that is not always the easiest thing.
And some of it is important meaning, and some of it clearly just like isn't actually relevant.
Yeah.
Right,
You have
right.
to know RJ did that too, like on purpose.
Right. And so it's like I want to talk about every sentence, but there is big chunks where it's like, yeah, these are just people
Just communicating.
walking.
Yeah.
And talking. Yeah. I like the way that Amis and Cerelia, they don't use the power to shield themselves. They use maidens.
That's actually
Just like-
smart and
Yeah.
super like that's crazy. Even if someone's trying to listen in, it's gonna get like, and I'm not 100% sure how the weave would work if an Aes Sedai was trying to like listen in. Like I'm not sure how that flow translates. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, is it like a little horn that opens up and you can filter the sound, or would that even block an Aes Sedai trying to listen in? It would get muddled.
Yeah, I always imagine that channeling to be sort of when like Egwene is listening at the windows. It's like putting your ear against a window.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
And so like wherever the other end of that is, that's where your ear is. And so I imagine if they like snaked it in so it was right under their mouths, that would work. But it's not like you can snake it in like kind of far away. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if it was right under their mouths, they would see it, obviously, because they're not inverting the flows.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the rules of channeling would make it so that way whatever the noise was in the intervening space, it wouldn't matter. You'd hear what was right at where the weave was picking up sound.
Right. It's basically like putting a microphone down at the end and having a microphone on the end of a boom arm and just like dropping it down. But I also imagine that like in a way it's just that intrusive as well. Right? That's why it's so hard to use it when you're like spying without inverting, is like literally this group of people standing around like talking, and this boom arm just like drops down in the middle of them out of nowhere, and they're like, we can see that. It's just like
hold it up in their direction.
it's like there's a mic there. We notice. And so that's why you have to be careful. You have to like put it on the other side of a wall, or like in the bushes, or on a window, or something like that. Or you have to invert it, which is something that we see later.
Or be using it on people who can't channel.
Yes,
That would work too.
that would also work. But like Egwene basically gets caught
Nynaeve.
in Carienne.
Oh,
What?
I thought you were talking about in
Yeah,
Saladar. In Carienne, it's Egwene. Yes.
Yes. Egwene is trying to spy on the Tower Aes Sedai.
Oh, yeah, from across the street. And
Yep.
yeah, she's not
And
hearing
they
the
spot her.
street. She's only hearing the window.
And that's where, like, all the rumors of the Green Sister, they're like, oh yeah, there is someone channeled at us this morning. We totally saw it, right? Like, that's Egwene just shoving the big boom arm mic, like, into their, like, up against their window. And someone's like, yeah, we can see that.
Except they don't. But she's very careful to avoid that because it would be obvious if she got too stupid about it.
There's a bit of an argument here with Rand and the Aes Sedai and the Wise Ones about healing him.
They kind of all
Yes.
pile on at once with several different things, and then healing sort of sorts to the top as the most urgent order of business.
Yes.
Because it's like we have to deal with the Aes Sedai, and the Aes Sedai are like, but we have to deal with Rand in pain. And the Wise Ones are like, okay, fair, deal with that, then we will deal with you.
And of course, then the whole debate about what's going to happen with the Aes Sedai. And, you know, clearly Cerealia is going to get her way. I think that's the only thing I can say about that. Like, she wants them, she's going to get her way. Like, Taim wants them. He gets very frustrated when he can't get them.
Oh, I just want to correct myself. I was totally wrong. They sort out the Aes Sedai first and then sort out healing Rand.
Yes.
I got
yes.
that completely backwards.
I was going to ask, because with the sorting out of where the Aes Sedai are going, hypothetically, had Rand given the Aes Sedai to Taim, what do you think would have happened?
Bad things.
Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about, like, Taim would straight up murder the Aes Sedai? Are we talking about, like, torture for information?
I'm thinking like
Are we
early
talking-
turning.
That's what I was going
to
to say. Early turning.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
I was
force
wondering,
bonding
like,
at least.
are we there yet in the series where we would see that hypothetically happen?
Well, these would be the first ones he has access to. This would push up the timeline of when he'd have an option to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Considering Rand would do, like, zero follow-up with them.
Right.
It would be bad.
It would be really bad.
And if they wouldn't cooperate, they would definitely get murdered because, oops.
Yeah. And then you have someone you can force bond, and then all of a sudden you have male and female half of the true source, and
Then turning
an
gets
evil
easy.
person. Yeah.
Yikes.
Turning gets real easy. Yeah.
So,
and that's
good
the whole
decision.
thing is like, once if you have only male channelers, it's very hard to turn male channelers with male channelers. But if you get these women, they're very easy to turn with the male channelers. There's the whole thing that the opposite sex channeling makes it easier to turn them.
Right.
And so with the women, all of a sudden you can use the women to turn the men and the men to turn the women.
Then literally
that's why-
everybody in the Black Tower would become
Either turned or black.
And I mean, we
so I
see
think,
that in the end cycle of this series where that starts
Right.
happening.
So it could have happened much sooner.
give that a boost, have it happen much sooner, and not have Rand's message arrive about be your own men in time, and all of a sudden you have a Black Tower that is 100% bad.
It'd be more devastating than the Sharans.
Yeah.
Like,
Yikes.
Just take that entire piece away from the light and give it to the Black.
yeah, completely negate any hope of Logain getting any kind of resistance going. You know, negate Androl out of the gate.
Yeah. Hey, I need a miracle, Androl.
Oh yeah,
No miracle.
No miracle. And then the Aes Sedai prisoners get called Datsang, which is a big deal.
Yeah. And this is where they really, I think that the Aiel really see the Aes Sedai having violated oaths.
Fundamentally, like
Fundamentally, yeah.
our unmeetable toe has been met by sheer virtue of you losing any right to our respect.
Mm-hmm.
Oops.
Oops, yeah. And it's like, and you're going to have to earn our respect back. Now, fortunately, they can by being made to understand they must swear to the dragon.
Which is induced with compulsion by Varen, so...
Well, you know, it depends. We're talking about two different groups of Aes Sedai, of course, right? So, like, the rebel Aes Sedai have already sworn.
Right.
And I guess they do become
Well, they become prisoners,
don't
but not Datsang. Datsang
Right.
is for
Right, so that-
the ones who kidnapped him and have not sworn fealty. And they have to get compelled by Varen to decide that they need to swear fealty.
Right.
Because
right.
Varen knows
and so
that
what
works.
makes them Datsang is the violating of the oath and the kidnapping?
Yeah.
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 Gotcha.
Yeah. But the other Aes Sedai are just willful children who need to be treated like apprentices.
Yeah, well, the Datsang, it's kind of like the pronouncement that, like, the zero honor, you can't be trusted, lowest of the low, like, bottom of the barrel, right?
It's-
Like, that's the entire point.
Most people don't ever get that low in their lives, right? This is a very rare
Yeah.
category for someone to fall into because it's irredeemable.
Which, I mean...
The only other ones we've seen is like Ascendra and Galena.
Right, and Galena is in the future still. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Ascendra is given that, and it's like, yeah, very rare. Guy Shine
It makes
is the
sense
normal
based on what
solution.
they did too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a huge violation to kidnap someone while you're in negotiations with them. It's a very un-Aiel thing to do.
I also, there's interesting significance that Ruark and Gall are the only two Aiel who aren't wearing the Saswayamon. Ruark is obviously leading them. Like, he is sworn to Rand, and he's the leader, so he's not necessarily the spear. But then there's Gall.
Gall's there for Perrin.
Gall's there for
parents.
Perrin.
Yeah,
and
Gall's
that's
Perrin's
such an interesting contrast that makes him like, everybody else is there for Rand. And then there's Gall.
He's got a blood debt.
And because Gall's going to become a clan chief someday.
He's
Yep.
smarter. He's smarter than your average Aiel.
Yeah, I mean, he hooked up with the Taviran very early on.
Yep.
Although that might have been the pattern playing a part, being like,
But he
yes, Taviran's
sticks
going to save
there
your life.
by his own free
Yep.
will. He could have chosen to drift away repeatedly, and he stays, and he comes for Perrin. So he doesn't need to be a Spear of the Dragon because he has a purpose supporting the blacksmith.
Right.
It's a pretty sacred duty to support the blacksmith.
For an Aiel, definitely.
And a battle
Blood
leader.
dead / blacksmith, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Plus they're friends. Don't take that away too.
Yeah, no, they've been through a lot,
Right.
and they're roughly the same
Yeah.
age. Like, yeah.
That's one thing that I wish we spent more time on is the sort of Talmanis Matt relationship between Gall and Perrin. Is
It's
the two
so
of them
good.
just like, hanging out and like,
I remember when they like first met too. Gall and Perrin were talking a little bit about how like crazy and they don't understand women, right? Because that's the whole bit that they have because of the Ban and Chiad thing and the Fael thing. But I remember Gall saying something, I think maybe when they were heading into the ways for the first time, leaving Tyr, he was like, ha, to be so young, right? He's like, just like living in the moment and so happy that he's just like doing what he's doing.
Hashtag
Like, he's all
YOLO.
here for it. Yeah, like,
Totally,
very much
totally.
so.
Which is something I really liked about Fire in the Ways. Brett, have you read that?
I haven't. I don't know where to find a copy of it, honestly.
No, you should just get the
Well,
whole anthology.
we'll send you one.
But
Okay.
Gall
I
has
bought a bunch of the anthologies and I don't have it though. Like I seriously can't find it.
Well,
I don't know
there's a
why.
moment in it where Gall very much brings this energy back, and it's awesome. And that's all I'll say.
Okay. I've read all the other ones. Like I've read the Shara stuff and all that, but not the Fire in the Ways.
It was really fun, and the moment with Gall is one of my favorite parts.
it is. I mean, I really regret that he cut Fire in the Ways out of the last book.
Isn't there
like-
some like some stuff doesn't line up properly?
Yeah, I mean, it's minor. It's like, yes, basically, Asanawa, or not Asanawa, who's the White Cloak?
Galad,
Bayar?
Bayar, Bornhald.
Bornhald.
Okay.
Bornhald, like, dies twice. Or Bayar dies twice, I think it is.
You know
like,
what?
because
I
Bayar
could- I could
dies.
stand for them dying twice. I'd be
Yeah,
okay with
like,
that.
because, like, basically Bayar dies in the series, but Bayar, in this short story, Bayar also is,
But like that would have
dies in
been
the
easy
ways.
to resolve if they had just not.
But
cut
yeah,
it.
just whatever.
It's
Just, cut that, whatever.
But
Not a big
whatever.
deal.
Yeah, it's
He was almost dead, not full dead.
It's very much worth
Right,
reading,
exactly, yes.
And then you should. Who did we do that with? We did that with Tom, right? From. Oh man, I forget who we did that with, but that was a fun episode.
I think
That
it was
a fun
Tom, yeah.
one-off.
That was a good one, yeah.
Anyhow, we will get through this.
It was a SpoilerCon episode,
We did it.
wasn't it?
Did we do it for SpoilerCon? Wow,
Yeah.
we're really good content
sure we did.
creators. We know what we're doing.
Whatever. We make a lot of episodes. Sometimes they run together,
Little bit.
okay? It's just like the books, right? You're like, what book is that in?
Yeah,
No, you don't know. When someone asks me, what episode did you do that in? I'm like,
but yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, we did that for SpoilerCon because it was a one-off.
yeah.
So, yeah. So the next thing I have is Perrin smelling Rand having several personalities.
Oh yeah, that's good. Set after the healing bit?
Before the healing bit, I'm just looking at.
Well, because they have the whole
Oh,
Taim
yeah.
and Rand argument, and that's where Perrin's like, nobody's sent change that fast, nobody's.
Yeah, no, you're right. I did my notes like not long before we did this recording, so I'm already like blurring together what part is what in the chapter.
We have jumped around a little bit as well and talked about some things that are later in
Yeah.
the chapter, which is also, so we're just trying to just get synced up here.
Like he had to be sane. Cannot hand Aes Sedai over to these worthy women. It's unthinkable.
He's pissed Galena got away, because remember, yesterday he'd been there's definitely a lot of hints I want to say about Rand going mad and LTT sort of coming out a little bit, being super mad that Galena got away and now settling down. I feel like that goes with the scent changing, because sometimes LTT's coming out and sometimes Rand's coming out, and so we're seeing this like rapidly changing, flipping personality.
Yes, and Perrin's confusion about the whole ordeal.
Why do you think that Tame smells strange and complex about the Aes Sedai being handed over to the Wise Ones? Where it's like he's actually happy about it? Like, you have any idea what that's about? I feel like it's more of the Tame on Dread that didn't get expunged when RJ changed his mind.
Yeah, I feel like that's just, he's a little upset that he didn't get them, but at the same time, it's like a burden he doesn't have to deal with type situation.
Yeah, I could see that too.
That's my best guess
really
on that. I didn't have a good answer
to
for that.
Take them on, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Well, it's also like the thing that RJ kind of does. He does it for a lot of like the Dark Friend characters that Perrin is smelling. And I remember he specifically did it a lot for the whole Slayer and Luke situation, where the smells aren't necessarily distinct, but Perrin usually identifies like Dark Friends as people who smell weird and complicated, like they have an alter ego going on.
Right.
So there could be some of that where it's like hinting that Perrin's like something's off about this guy. Mm-hmm. But I mean, generally when he's confused about smells, it's because there's like dark friendy stuff going on.
Right, because they're never telling the truth, right?
Yeah, and it also makes sense for Rand, because he also does the whole like, I'm confused about the smells because of Rand, because Rand's got the whole madness thing going on. Right. Which I would totally link to like Shadow. So
there's the madness and the taint, right? And the shadow, all like, are dark friends maybe just a little tainted? People, you know, like this,
ones who are
like
touched
that
by
relationship.
shadow, ones who have interacted with dark magic. Like,
how does Fane always able to identify a dark friend? Well, they have some sort of smudge on their forehead. He describes it,
like
you know,
sooty
like
mark
some sort
on
of
the
mark.
forehead.
Yeah. And we definitely later see that where Shutter Haran marks Alviarin, right, as his own with that sort of gesture as well. So there seems to be some sort of tainted mark on dark friends that reflects
like
in the
something
taint
almost physical
and the
you can
madness.
pick up on.
And it seems like Perrin seems to be able to smell that almost,
but like hasn't connected the dots on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not saying that complicated people are always evil.
It's like, welcome to Perrin's character.
Right, Jesus. I mean, that's what it is. We're explaining what he smells, because he does no freaking clue.
You know what the funniest thing to me still is about Perrin not connecting dots is how he doesn't figure out that the wild hunt, or the great, like the wild hunt,
the
or whatever
last
they
hunt.
call the wolves call the last hunt, is like equivalent to the last battle. Like I feel like that goes on for way too long. Where he's like,
difference
what's
there.
what does that mean? What's coming? It's like, buddy, pay attention here.
That's on the level with Lois Lane not identifying Clark Kent as Superman because he takes his glasses off. And it's like, seriously, get your eyes checked. Like, I would love if that was the canon reason that Lois Lane actually had really terrible eyesight and just never got glasses because it wouldn't look good on camera, and that's why she never identified that Clark Kent and Lois and Superman were the same person, because everyone's like blurry faced to her. So yeah, I think the healing is now the next thing to talk about. Min basically is the one who eventually convinces him to get healed.
Yeah, Nandera and Sulin kind of do the talking to themselves to dispense advice thing.
Yeah, the Karin isn't that stupid.
Yeah, and Rand's being stubborn, and then Min's like, but seriously. And Rand's like, fine.
This whole Alana bit is super weird.
I'm nodding.
I just wanted to comment on Min's comment, or else you won't be able to sit in a saddle? What else? I feel like there's a pause there where she was going to say something else about...
Or else we won't be able to have comfort sex? Oh, wait, no, that hasn't happened yet.
But that hasn't happened yet.
Or is
so
that like
I
a
was...
spanking joke? Like, we know that there's definitely spanking jokes.
Yeah. Or is it just Min being flirty because she's allowed to be because it's joking?
Yeah. I feel like it's British humor. Like, it's just something I don't understand. I know it's humor. I know it's funny. I just don't understand why.
Wetlander humor.
Yeah, I think she's just teasing him, and yeah. It's a weird moment. Anything is funny in a moment this weird, right?
And so, yeah, he turns to Alana to heal him. And I have to wonder if that's not maybe because then she's already bonded him.
Absolutely.
She can't bond him. Yeah, it's like he doesn't trust any other Aes Sedai to maybe bond him.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like he knows that she's not going to pull more shit because she's already pulled the maximum level of shit that you can pull. So,
yeah. Absolutely. He's just like, I don't even care if people know that I'm your warder
Mm-hmm.
in this moment. Like, I'm not trusting any other power wielder in this entire group.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's like the whole cupping her chin thing is also, it's a very weird thing that's happening.
Get that moment at all.
It's a power thing.
That's what I was thinking.
It's
like
a power thing.
Yeah, like I know that you force bonded me and you put me in this situation, but but then her blush, it's I kind of get it. Like I'm almost there.
Well, Super Sky likes phrasing it in a really appropriate way. Imagine having to decide to have your rapist heal you up.
But then also being the person who's more in control, right? Like, imagine being the president and having your rapist in your cabinet.
Right.
And, like, being able to call down fire and fury on them if you want to.
And yet you can't, like, get rid of them.
Right, because they're too useful and there's a connection. Yeah.
Yeah. And then almost like a, hey, you did this to me, but you can't look me in the eyes when you heal me.
Right.
Like,
You will never have my respect, but you will do my bidding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so weird because there's no way that anybody could know any of that.
yeah.
Right? Because that is a secret between them.
And then Rand saying, heal me as a command, not a request that Perrin picks up on. So, like you said, it is it's a weird power dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, I mean, all the other Aes Sedai could definitely pick up on it. They know she's been bonded to him.
Yeah.
Right.
No. But, yeah, Taim, I love Taim's puzzlement. Like, how did Rand know she was there? And then, like, I wonder if he puts two and two together. I wonder if...
No, because it says it prickled something in the back of his head, but he could not make out
Yeah.
what. Because he's got
Yeah.
slow thoughts.
Well, especially because Time steps forward when Perrin shuts down the other ones. So Time's like, oh, I'm going to heal Rand. Like, he steps forward to do it.
Yeah, and it catches Taim, too. Perrin and Taim
Yeah.
both notice that Rand is behaving in a certain way. And I think that Taim puts two and two together. I think he's much quicker than Perrin on that.
Do you think this is how the Shadow figures out to kidnap Alana?
Yes.
Well, there's like 1,000 Aes Sedai. Like, it's not a secret that Alana force bonded him. So,
True.
like, all the other Aes Sedai know about it and they freely talk about it. So I could imagine someone else.
Yeah, we have no idea who kidnaps her.
We
so-
don't.
Yeah.
But the idea of her being kidnapped to me seems like a Taim plot.
And maybe he comes up with that idea now. Because maybe it would be something he gets entrusted with when he's first raised to Forsaken.
Yeah, I
Right?
was going to say, like, add to the resume, you bring a good
Yeah.
idea to your boss, and it's
Right.
like you get a promotion because of that good
Yeah.
idea.
Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, Rand is bonded to this Aes Sedai, and if we take her hostage, we can distract
And I
her at a key
totally
time.
have a force of men who's prepared to do that, like, at a moment's notice.
Right.
Just say the word and it's done. Yeah, that would go over very well.
He's just trying to work his way up the corporate chain, guys. I don't know why we're all mad at him.
Him and Shiriam, they make
Yeah.
a match in heaven.
Seriously.
Perrin, on the other hand, has no problem taking healing, unlike Matt, who every scar is a badge of honor, and Rand, who doesn't trust. Perrin's like, oh yeah, go ahead, heal me
Yeah.
up, I'm good. I don't need
Well,
any
Perrin's
scars.
like, I'm a tank. I need healing. I'm not a ranger or a caster. I'm a tank. I require healing.
Heals, please.
It's actually super relevant. It's like,
Yeah, he tanked his way up to the front. Him and Loial, man,
Mm-hmm.
they were absolutely absorbing the damage.
yeah. And it's like, hey, Rand, if you're playing your character properly, you shouldn't be taking damage.
Right?
Come on.
God.
Yeah.
Backseat drive Rand.
Well, and also, Perrin got his hand slashed open. You don't mess with hand wounds.
It's true.
you
Despite
do
all the
that stuff
scenes about how you make
Yeah.
blood oaths with cutting your palm, that's actually a really bad
That's
idea.
the worst thing. I hate
Don't
that.
do
I
that.
hate
Terrible.
that so much. How many nerves and friggin' important things are in these guys?
I had a friend who accidentally stabbed her hand with a chisel in woodshop class and was very lucky to miss everything. It was like, you just stabbed your palm. There's no way you missed everything. She missed everything. But there's so
Yeah.
much going
Well,
on here.
and it's kind of like that whole thing. Yeah, why would you cut there to do the blood oath? It's like, let's cut blood oaths out altogether. Sharing our blood is not recommended.
Hey, how about I prick my finger and put a drop on a thing, and you put a drop on a thing, and we call it done?
No, because the second person who's touching that is still getting their blood in your...
Well, a drop.
next
That's
next
why
to
you.
each other.
Oh, drop it. Okay.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Sure, if you want to do the whole...
Bloody fingerprint.
Seth is all about that, then you can do it that way if you really want.
I need to mix my blood with other people. Yes. No, that's
So what was this about a business contract I signed with this guy?
You didn't sign it in your own blood?
But you didn't say I had to use my own blood.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, dang.
As long as you use somebody's blood. By the way, how's that husband doing?
He keeps buying me beer, so we're fine.
He's
Okay,
fine.
okay. Yeah, hey, fine. How many pints of blood can you take out of a person a month? I forget what's the limit.
Is there
Or
a
any
limit?
before they die? Can you remind me?
I don't know. My uterus seems to think that all of it is an appropriate amount.
Oh,
so-
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Jesus. Things I'm glad I don't have to deal with.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
Next thing I have is Soralia shooing the Aes Sedai off screen. Because I like
Finally.
shooing motions. I like brisk shooing motions.
So
Move!
funny, yeah.
Move! Get! I love it. I love
Okay,
Soralia.
what was the thing that was whispered?
Ah,
Who to
yes.
who?
So Amis whispered, so reluctantly the Aes Sedai let themselves be herded, making it seem they were simply going where they wished. Joining Cerelia, Amis whispered something that Perrin did not quite catch. The three Aes Sedai apparently did, though. They stopped dead. Three very startled faces looking back at the wise ones.
No idea.
And I imagine it was something like, well, we know that Amis and Cerelia had gotten in an argument about whether or not to get into the battle. And so I imagine it's something like Amis coming up to Cerelia and saying something like, oh, you're right, they are just startled children. Or something like, they are just like little children that need to be, brought in line. Something very cutting, very Aiel, very like...
I was thinking that, or like some sort, like reference to some sort of punishment that they'd have to do, because we know that the Aiel like to do the whole, whether nudity is involved or whatever. Like I can see something that the Aes Sedai would think is, what's the opposite of modesty? You know what I'm saying? Like it's something that's
Immodesty?
Immodesty.
Yeah,
like,
that's a word.
Okay, so you know what I'm saying. So a suggestion that would make them like, oh my god, they're gonna do what to us?
Yeah, threatening some
To
sort of
make them
shaming
stop
thing.
and be. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't really figure out
would-
what makes them feel shame until Varen clues them in, which happens after
Yeah,
this. They
so-
sort of struggle with how to shame the Aes Sedai at first.
Yeah.
Right, because they don't understand the Aes Sedai culture of like, they think that things like washing clothes, well, that's useful labor. That would make them feel proud because they're doing things. When in fact, makes the Aes Sedai feel like servants.
Yeah.
That shames them.
I'm thinking like, oh, let's strip them naked and make them run 50 laps around the camp or something, and then
Yeah, I mean,
"Oh my
that would be
God,
nice,
what?"
but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but we've already seen Egwene doing that, and that didn't seem to have much effect on her. She just had.
Well, Egwene is not like these ones, so
No, that's very true.
yeah. Anyways, little point. So
So here's where we get then the next sort of, if pointing to Alana was absolutely based on the bond, pointing, directly at Shiva is definitely not, which is this next section, where basically Taim talks Rand into taking at least one Ashaman with him, and Rand says, fine, I'll pick, spins around 3 times, points at Shiva, and calls it a day. And of course, Taim, we spent quite a bit at the beginning of the episode talking about this scene. I wasn't sure if there's anything else you wanted to say about it.
I think just the scents that change from Perrin. I think that's the thing we haven't fully dissected all the way 17 times, different ways.
Gotcha.
well, the scent changing back and forth so quickly. Obviously, that's like an LTT thing going on.
Yeah, rage,
Yeah.
curiosity, fury, determination. Like it's too fast. It's too much whiplash. It's not one person.
LTT has a fascination with like murdering everybody all the time, especially men who can channel whenever he's around them. So I can kind of see when Rand's like choosing or being brought up by Taim about who to pick, then LTT's like in this weird argument in his head, and then it's like kill everybody, and Rand's like don't kill everybody, and then LTT's like maybe just kill some people.
That would be compromise.
That is how you compromise.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's kill everybody! No!
Okay, how about just
Let's
like
kill
7 people?
most of them! That's not a compromise.
And I mean, I feel like this is definitely not a moment that supports LTT as a real person. This supports LTT as a coping mechanism for Rand, for sure. But it's a moment in which
Absolutely.
LTT very much has the upper hand because Rand is extremely stressed and traumatized.
Is there an argument that LTT is a real person?
I mean, for academic
Yes.
purposes, yes.
Or it's more of a artifact of not knowing the end of the story.
Yeah, because like obviously that was definitely something that I had conversations with. Is like, oh my god, is LTT like real. But, like, I never really felt like we landed on the...
No, I think some people just hold on to that theory because
Okay.
it's like they had the theory before the books were finished.
Sure, yeah.
And then they're like, well, but maybe, and especially the 3 becoming 1, and then
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
that whole thing, that was really, we see it as the use of Kalimdor.
Yeah.
Or
Three powers.
the 3 powers, but other people see it as like Rand, LTT, and Moradin becoming 1.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
there's arguments out there that they are separate entities. I don't buy them. I've argued against it for quite some time, at quite some length, at quite some volume. So, that's where I fall on it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I used to be a bit, debating that, and then I listened to all the arguments, and then had some of the arguments all on this pod, and it's like, yeah, no, you're right. I'm on board now.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's what... There are certain things that Sanderson writes where he just gives you the answer. And this is one of them. Like, he just, in the last 3 books, answers some questions. And what LTT is gets answered. Pretty distinctly, pretty straightforward.
Clearly.
Yeah. And so, yes, up until the end of book 11, I could absolutely see the argument that people would have that LTT is somehow a different soul than Rand, reborn into his head, communicating. That's what being the Dragon Reborn is that, like, somehow there's a duplicate soul that gets reborn into your head, and that's who he's talking to, and he was insane, like...
I mean, and 2 souls existing in one body is a thing that happens.
Absolutely is a thing that happens, right. We see that frequently.
So I can see that now, too. Yeah, okay.
Anyways,
but that crazy voice in his head, hey?
Oh, yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
So Deshiva's cover story, Corlin Deshiva from a farm in the Black Hills.
who reads a lot. That's his excuse for knowing obscure things, is he likes to read.
That's Matt's excuse for knowing things, too.
That was
Don't buy it
Rand's
there either.
excuse for knowing things.
Right.
Rand did that
Oh, I read
too.
it in a book. Yep.
Yeah, I read it
It's
in
true.
a book, and then Matt said, I also read it in a book.
I also read a book.
Like,
Everyone looked at him and goes, you what?
right.
What book are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. The Shiva is gaining strength rapidly, but his head is in the clouds as often as not, even when it isn't. He's not always entirely there. Maybe he's just a daydreamer, and maybe the taint on Sidene is touching his brain already.
This kind of leads to the whole, like, he knows that he's a dark friend, but he still doesn't really get him, because he's
Right.
kind of like, he's not the normal in-crew of, like, the boys club that Taim has formed.
Exactly.
Right? And so since he's still like a bad guy, but he's not on the in crew, Taim still like doesn't get him fully.
And Taim tries to pass him Torville or Rochide, which we know are two of the Dark Friends. Later he calls for Gedwin, Rochide, Torval, and Kisman, which are the 4 men who attack Rand in the palace. So these are Taim's top henchmen right now, and he's trying to get one of them.
And he's like, why is it that the one guy I bring along randomly, for some reason I can't quite put my finger on, why is it that that's the guy that the Dragon Reborn wants? Why can't my 4 hand-picked people be the ones?
Here's a question for you. Do we see Rand pick the 4 soldiers and dedicated? 4 soldiers and 4 dedicated for 8 total?
I don't think
No.
we see that.
Because we get a few descriptions of them. Yeah, I mean, like, there's, like, 1 or 2. Like, I think one of them is a grizzled man who ends up being Dahmer Flynn.
Yeah, Dahmer Flynn and
like-
the dude who's with him and Perrin.
And there, is Narishma in there, or is he later? I can't remember.
I think he's later, but I'm not...
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
okay.
no, because all the ones that are with Rand, when the attack happens, they get declared deserters as well, and they all end up getting bonded. So all the ones who end up getting bonded to these sisters are probably the ones who got picked out here, even though we're not seeing them named yet. I'm not positive about that, but I think that that's how that works.
Gonna do a quick Google.
That's the sound of Google right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got Fedwin Moore.
Who dies from wine,
Yeah.
which is during that attack, specifically.
Just looking for a list of Ashaman that were there. Without going through the list one by one, there's no...
Grady and Niald. Those are the ones I'm thinking of.
Jer Grady, Morley Hardin,
Doesn't ring a bell.
Dafid Norley, Evan Vinkova, he's turned. Those are the dedicated soldiers. Could be Jonan Adley, James Torfin, Sam Alcine.
Those are all from the Two Rivers. They're going to get harvested soon, but they haven't been yet.
So I'm not sure we get a complete list of those.
I would assume a lot of them are the ones that become the first warders to Aes Sedai, because they're with Rand when he goes into hiding.
Yeah, they're all the ones who I imagine are with Cod Swain when they are with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she's
At
holding
the,
Sayidine.
Cleansing. Right,
He's
exactly.
in this group.
Right. Of the 9 who remained, another besides Deshiva was in his middle years, a stocky fellow with a farmer's face. And one, with a limp and a fringe of white hair, might easily have been a grandfather. The rest were younger, a little more than boys. And then Deshiva. So then you get basically a point where Perrin pulls Rand aside and tells him that everything is going badly.
Well, first Rand tells Perrin to get everything together and then goes stomping off. So then Perrin has to assuage the worries of Javian and Dobrain, who are like, is Rand insane? And Perrin's like, no.
No, not yet.
No, he's not.
We get Daniel and Tel Lewin, which are the brothers. We had a bit of confusion over whether they were brothers or cousins last time we brought them up.
Yeah, because not all of the reference materials on the internet agree, though.
But this sure as hell makes it sound like they're brothers.
The word brothers does suggest that is the relationship. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. One would think. And so I had to bring that up because I know we had the argument, and here it's like brothers, right there on the page.
And then there's the whole thing about a man looking like he has fleas when he scratches at his beard, which is hilarious, coming from Perrin. Because,
What are you talking about?
It's real.
I mean, Perrin's a wolf, so it's like extra appropriate.
But I like that he sees it and realizes it, and he's currently scratching his beard while he sees it, so he pulls his hand down really quick because he's like,
well, also
It's
super
fine.
hypocritical of Perrin, because if you remember way back when, Perrin never used to have a beard. And then Fio was like, you should grow a beard. So he grew a beard, and he was like, oh, it's always itchy. And then when he went back to the Two Rivers, every young guy who starts to grow a beard, he internally criticizes their beards. It's like, oh, barely any facial hair. It's like, buddy, you were that guy once too. Hello.
And he does it right here to Daniel and Tel. He says Daniel affected mustaches like downturned horns, while Tel wore narrow lines of dark hair and a nose like a pickaxe. He's looking at.
He's like the buddy who is super proud of his own facial hair, and then just has to put down everybody who can't grow facial hair. And as someone who has a hard time growing facial hair, I take offense to this.
And as someone who has not a hard time growing beautiful facial hair, I am that person. But yeah, definitely. And in the beginning of the previous chapter, it opens with him talking about how much he was sweating and how hot it was and how much his beard itches. So we know he's been itching his beard this whole time because hot, sweaty, itchy beard that he's growing out. I also had a great analogy about his beard being an analogy for the leadership that Fael is thrusting upon him, which I really liked.
That was appropriate, yeah.
Because she's forcing him to grow the beard and take leadership roles. And it's very uncomfortable in both situations. Yep. The next thing I have is Perrin telling Rand everything he wanted to say, being like, look, I smelled, saw,
sensed, suspect,
suspect, all these things going on between these characters. And that ends up sort of the first thing that Rand challenges him on is his Perrin's assessment of what the Aes Sedai being turned over to the Aiel means, and that it would have been better to not do that.
Yeah, and it sets the stage for their very real fake argument, right?
It does.
Perrin says right here, I will stand in your way if you intend harm to the Aes Sedai. So, when Rand thinks, why did Perrin have to pick that as a topic? It's because you literally already started fighting about it at this point.
Right. And it's a legit disagreement.
Yeah, it's a real fight that they have, a real disagreement, and a real conflict.
Min doesn't seem to think so.
They blow it up into something bigger than it really is. Yeah. And Min can see that. Mm-hmm. But, they do have a legitimate disagreement underneath the fake fight.
Perrin's saying you should commit to not murdering them under any circumstances, and Rand is saying, I'm not going to, and you shouldn't assume I'm going to, and I'm offended that you assume I'm going to murder them.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me, too, because I think that the last time that I guessed it, or one of the last times, it was when Perrin and Rand reunited in Cairhien right before he was kidnapped. And Perrin and Rand had this conversation where Perrin was getting all mad at Rand for like using people, but then like immediately proceeded to do the exact same thing that he was saying don't do. And it's like kind of the same. It's like a weird take of like, oh, you better not do this, and it's like, why would I do this? You better not do this. It's just like it doesn't quite line up for logical like disagreements, but
it's almost like they think the other one's good with women or something and don't really understand the strengths and weaknesses of the other opposing person.
Yeah, they just assumed each other would be a war criminal because you know that's what they are or whatever.
No, that's why I like the reoccurring joke about like, oh, he must be good with women, even though it's a little corny. Is that what it does is emphasize the fact that the characters have no idea what's going on in each other's heads.
It's a bit of a Rosetta Stone for how unreliable the narration is.
Exactly.
Well, and to take it a step further, it's like here we have Perrin being like, oh, you better not harm these people, don't commit war crimes. And then in the future, Perrin goes on to like commit war crimes. So, hey.
Yeah, it takes one to know one and all that.
I don't know, chopping off a man's hand for information who's a prisoner, permanently maiming him for the rest of his life doesn't seem like a war crime to me.
What does he know, and how much do you want to know that stuff? So.
Yeah. He sees Rand shaking off LTT quite a bit. We get this quote about, I don't have any good choices, which I think I talked about that earlier.
That's true.
That they really have. Yeah, they have. And Rand asks Min if she saw any images, which she basically said, no, there's too much channeling.
Because they're just like Aes Sedai. They're becoming like Aes Sedai.
Except the Taim stuff, too.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Blood in his past and blood in his future.
It's like, what do you do with that, though? So.
Yeah, it's like, a man who's involved in this is going to continue being involved in this. This is a shocking revelation.
Was there blood in his past? Like, yesterday, maybe? Ashaman kill? Like, seriously. He may have... with that one order, he probably killed more people in a single day than almost anyone else.
Was he doing it, though? Or did he just give the command?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he was, like, fighting with Saldaeans and, like, killing people and committing war crimes to Saldaean nobles, like, before this. Like, that's just canon.
And he's going to fight in the last battle. On one side or the other, he's going to fight in the last battle. So
it's like saying David Hanlon is dangerous and has killed people and will kill people again. It's like, he's a sleazy assassin, rapist. Like, that. Yeah. And then we get this really long, super non sequitur story from Min about her entire life experience that I always am just like, why is this inserted here? I don't.
It's the same story we've heard before, too.
Virtually.
It is.
Yeah. It's in slightly more detail, but it doesn't add anything, and it makes no sense in this context.
I would say it's recap.
Unnecessary.
For the most part.
Recap.
Unnecessary recap. The only thing I would bring up is the fact that we've gone pretty deep into Rand's trauma. Min has also been traumatized. And part of, I think, what she's doing is taking solace in telling her story. I find I do that too, where like I'll go back to a story I know if I'm feeling particularly disturbed, and I want to I want to center myself back in the life that I had after I've gone through a major disruption. And so that's all I'm thinking is basically she's telling herself who she is again after being kidnapped and abused and traumatized.
So, but here's, I just want to kind of throw this out here too, because the way she opens the story is kind of weird, and I didn't really read it till just now, so maybe you can help me dissect this. But she says, Perrin, they know about me, the wise ones and maidens, maybe all of them, and they don't care. And then Perrin speculates that she has the talent that she keeps hidden, just like he has the wolf thing he keeps secret. And then Min says, you can't know what that's like, Perrin, and then proceeds to tell the story. That, like, this big thing. So it's like Perrin actually knows exactly what it's like because he also has a same type of secret that he's keeping hidden from everybody, and he hasn't necessarily found that collective crew of people who just accept him as is.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can say is growing up with it is different than coming into it as an adult.
Yes. Yeah, no, and I mean, that's the weird kind of take on that, but it's also Min telling Perrin that you can't know what it's like to have a secret that people can't know about, but now these people accept me. It's like it's just like
it's great irony.
Maybe telling the story drives that point home for us. That, and I never really thought about it, but like I guess Min doesn't know about Perrin's deal either. So
no, she doesn't.
No, definitely not. She would have no reason to.
I like the idea that this is a bit of a trauma response of her telling that story again, but then she goes right on to being strategic on the next page, and it's just, if this is a trauma response, it wraps up really fast. But at the same time, every time I think characters are random, it's probably a trauma response. This is a theme with me in podcasting, as I discovered that random actions are trauma responses that I didn't know how to recognize until someone told me. So,
but I mean, look at the two of them. The two of them just walked off a battlefield, laughing gaily and hugging each other, while the bodies of ripped apart people were around them. They are compartmentalizing, right? Yeah. There's a certain amount of, I am with Rand, and that is a good thing. But I am on a battlefield full of dead bodies and people that died for that to happen. That is a bad thing. And yet they're able to laugh and have fun because they're together. And so she's trying to split those two things off. And so what I see is this yo-yoing between different states of mind of, I'm with Rand, we're okay, I'm okay, with, oh my god, look at this horrific battlefield.
That's really fair. All right, fine, it's important.
Or it's Jordan... as editors asking him to write a little recap when someone asked Min, do you see things? And people are like, see things? I don't remember what that is. Who's this Min character again? Can you remind us what she does? And Jordan writes a paragraph about her backstory in there that he's already written.
It could be that. It could literally be that. Yeah.
That's more what it feels like, but I'd rather headcanon, like, psychological world building that makes me happier. But it always has felt really awkwardly inserted to me, so that does make an editorial choice seem like a valid hypothesis.
I also just feel like we've kind of ignored Min up to now in this chapter, other than as a Rand side piece.
And the fact that she's laughing with him I'm glad deserves mention.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
It does.
Because like that's not normal. That's not how you should be responding to this situation. Mm-mm. And we don't get to see her much processing this at all, so yeah, we should pay attention the one time we do get to see it.
Mm-mm. No, it's amazing how much of Min's own trauma she subsumes in, basically doesn't deal with in order to support Rand.
So she's going to fall apart hard after the last battle.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just Rand's going to fall apart. Min's going to fall apart too.
I can see Min having some issues after the last battle.
Yeah. 2-1 won't like that.
No, there might be some interesting. Anyway, Outrigger novels.
Yeah, let's go.
So yeah, it's kind of disappointing that she doesn't see anything interesting around the Asha'man. I would have loved a couple of decent prophecies right here. Like, yeah. Come on, Jordan. You usually give us like 3 or 4 decent prophecies every time Min's around
Tashiva.
Some channelers.
Just something about Tashiva.
Just something about Tashiva, or like,
or about Hopwell, or anything.
Right, anything. Give us, the old man who, I don't know, is even just something that makes us think they're going to go insane.
A cup of wine.
Like, I don't know. Give me
simple. Yeah, we've already got
wine.
It. Done.
Yeah.
No, it has to be an inconsistent power that has no bearing on what we want.
Bambi makes a good point that maybe Min's distraction is part of why she's seeing relevant things, but because she's so traumatized, she can't process them and make sense of them.
It would make sense that she's a few spoons short of where she needs to be to interpret that. Maybe.
Yeah.
That would work.
It's entirely possible.
And there's a lot of them, right? And a lot of them are holding the power, and that makes it harder. So
yeah,
there's a lot of branching points are happening in the pattern right now, right? Because Taim is shuffling plans as Rand Taviran's around everything. Like there maybe aren't good images to be had in this moment.
This is a significant pivot point for the future. I mean, where all of these characters go from here. Where Rand goes, where Perrin goes, where Taim goes, where the Aes Sedai go, like everything sort of splits off from this point into, they have gathered at Dumai's Wells and then they leave from there to go to the Shido, everything.
Yeah.
What do you think about Loial's trying to constantly insist that Rand describe his trauma experience for his book and Rand trying to put it off?
I have a lot of feelings.
I think Loial's trying to write a book.
I think in this situation, I think he's using it as a distraction tactic to try to keep the Aes Sedai like out of the situation and try to diffuse tension. Overall, I think he's really insensitive because he's a teenager who wants to write a book.
Yeah, like I honestly don't think that Loial has a lot of like ulterior motives here to try to distract or anything. Like I think he wants to get information because he wants to write the best book because this is what has to survive. Like I straight up think Loial is just like author mode, 100%.
Right. I wonder if it's a bit of a criticism about like journalists on veterans coming back from war and being like, "Did you kill anybody?" Like, never ask a veteran that question.
Oh, good take. Like if this was like an
Yeah.
RJ experience.
Right.
Don't ask me
Right.
to recount
Like-
my fun wartime stories.
Yeah.
That's not how this works.
Right. Exactly. Like, I'll tell you tomorrow. Don't ask me.
Well, I
today.
mean, maybe not even necessarily like journalists, like specifically, but just anyone in general. Like, I can understand where
Right.
insensitivity, like knowing what his like him being a helicopter gunner and him even having the quotes where it's like, I know what it's like to, kill people, and I know what it's like for people who want to kill me. Like RJ understood that experience, so I could see where he would want to write in where it's like just anyone in general asking war stories could in a very easy way be misinterpreted as like insensitive.
I like that read.
Yeah.
And also, his response when Loial says, "I need it now so you don't forget," and he returns and says, "I won't."
Yeah.
That was sort of some intense PTSD.
Ever.
It's not. The flashbacks are gonna
Yeah.
keep it nice and fresh. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. That's I mean that right there, that sentence, I won't forget. A grim, sour scent flashed from him, despite the smile.
Well, it's like
and
the
was gone.
relive it in my dreams every night situation, right?
Yeah,
Once I can sleep again.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, no, that's a rough line from anyone who knows a vet
Yeah.
or is one. Rand motioned to Shiva to come closer. The man was not skinny, yet he moved in a hesitant, creeping way, hands folded at his waist that made him seem so. And I'm going to refer back to Landfear when she was posed as Kylie. That this, again, is someone who's not comfortable in their own body or didn't always have the body that they are portraying themselves as. Right? Agenor was a skinny, skeletal-looking dude.
Right, and presumably he's making much less of a good situation than Arangar Halima with
Yep.
melding to the body. Right, he's much more resistant.
The Shiva's kind of described as a lumpy, fat, ugly dude. Like, there's nothing attractive or, like, he's just, the man was not skinny, right? Like,
Yeah.
and yet he moves like somebody who is. But so it's just, again, one of those quotes, like, we're getting all these little drips about the Shiva not being exactly who he says he is, and not moving the way your weight looks like you should move. It always is often one of those things that indicates Forsaken or someone in hiding or someone in a new body.
Unless it's
something like
Vannon.
that, which I think is a red herring.
I love that red herring that you pointed out. Because he could have been. He could have been. Now I'm constantly like...
Vannon de Dread.
Yeah,
that's
Vannon
my... Yes. Demondrin?
No.
Demondra Vannon? No.
Yeah, no. It has to start with
Doesn't
the
work.
Vannon name.
But
Because that's
yeah.
just end with dread.
no, I'm
Just the dread ending
Yeah.
is too good.
Vannon the horse thief of dread. But he's such a good red herring for Demondred. I definitely
Especially because this is a real
Yeah,
thing.
I gotta say that was one of the best. Like that was really well written. Like that entire his whole plot line
Yeah.
had me guessing
Vannon's?
the entire time. Vannon, yeah. Vannon.
Oh, yeah. So you were like actually thought he was a dark friend when he stole the horn?
Flipped back and forth 100,000 times, 100%. Like I had no clue what was going on.
I didn't doubt him mostly.
I never doubted him. I was confused enough about what was supposed to be in the pouch that I was like, wait, what's supposed to be in the pouch? Oh, Vannon thought something else was in the pouch. That's like I immediately I was like, I'm confused. Vannon's confused. That's what's going on
fair.
here. Like he never meant. Yeah,
See,
yeah.
My
Totally.
brain just is like guilty. He did it. Go get him.
Yeah.
So
Well, and again, part of me is always like, no matter what, the narrator is unreliable. So when Fail's like, he stole the horn, I'm like, no, you're wrong. Just I don't know anything else except that you're wrong.
The next thing I have is the introduction of the title, Mahale.
yeah,
This is the
Mahale.
first time
Yeah.
it gets introduced.
yeah.
And I love that another Forsaken is the one who introduces the Forsaken
I never
name.
noticed that. Oh, the baton
Yeah.
pass. It's real.
Because I mean, really, at this point, like Taim is a more effective Forsaken in the Third Age than Deshiva ever could have been.
For sure. Because he knows
And so,
the third age.
yeah, this is
He's
definitely
of
like-
the third age.
Yeah, right. And so this is really where like Deshiva's calling him Mahale, if anything, yeah, I would say that the Dark One gives Osengar's place as a Forsaken to Taim.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Right? Because Deshiva could have been brought back a third time. He got
He didn't get
fireballed.
Bale fired.
There's
He got
nothing
fireballed,
saying...
yeah.
He got fireballed, not Bale fired. So he absolutely could have been brought back. And Dark One's like, no.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm good.
enough time. Like, fool me once, shame on
Yeah.
me. Or shame on you.
Right.
Yeah.
That was... You were not... Thanks for the Trollocs. That gets you one.
Right. But then it's like... And I think that's too why he's nervous and patronizing as he introduces the Mahale, like, concept in this. Is because he's like... You know, that would make a good Forsaken name, but like he's totally never going to be up to my level, you know.
Okay, so I'm not very good at knowing sports, but just like bear with me on this. So it kind of reminds me of the whole, like, when you said passing the torch, you always get those pictures of, like, you know, Tiger Woods or like LeBron James or like a super famous athlete who's with a kid who then grows up to like play in the same league as that same player. 10 years later. So it kind of reminds me of like the kid who grew up like watching this superstar athlete who then just gets to go and like play beside him. Kind of reminds me of the whole like Taim to one of the Forsaken.
But it's like evil League of Evil.
Evil League of Evil. But I can just
Right.
imagine like the little kid Taim just like shaking hands with like a a superstar Forsaken.
I've seen a Michael Phelps picture like that, where Phelps
Yes.
was shaking the hand of
Yeah.
like a 10-year-old, and he grew up to like beat him.
He went on to like be
in
on the Olympic team
Olympics
against or with him or something.
Yep,
But like
yep.
exactly that.
Yep.
I could totally see it's
love
like Taim doing that photo op for that. So
That's awful and wonderful.
yeah.
And in the first picture, it's Taim and Agenor, and in the second picture, it's like Taim standing tall over like Deshiva, and it's like, see, the roles have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a great deal on the farm. Every book the peddlers brought by, which is going to be his excuse for his knowledge. And that's pretty much the end of the chapter.
Yeah, we just have Rand sort of setting us up for Colaver and all of that. Like, sort of reminding you, the reader, that the world engaged certain plans when he was kidnapped, and now we're going to go pick up on that.
We have to deal with the side effects of everything the Aes Sedai did and all the promises they made.
Well, you kind of have to think of the coordinated attack on this too. Like, wheels like were in motion before the kidnapping happened. Like, the span of time between Ryan being kidnapped and him getting free, it's only like, what, 2 weeks or something? It's like 14, 15, 16 days, like somewhere around there. Like, that's not enough time in a lot of cases for even like notes to be passed, like letters to be sent to whoever. Like, that's not very much time. So you kind of have to think it was more coordinated to, like, you know, launch a let's take over Kyrie. And
Well, that's why the Aes Sedai did all that groundwork.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. So as people are waiting,
Yeah, we saw them doing all that groundwork.
like people
totally.
waiting for Rand to fail and then like jump on that opportunity.
Yeah. Because, the Aes Sedai probably weren't the only ones doing that sort of preemptive planning. Even if
100%,
they were the
yeah.
only ones engaging a plan.
No.
There were contingencies on contingencies on contingencies.
That's the thing. Everybody has their own plans.
Yes, and I love the way the plans interact in the same way that like rumors interact, right? There's a similar sort of like weave or pattern that Jordan likes to come up with, which is take all of the individual plans and they're all going in their own direction, and the way they interact lace together to form the story.
That's the end of chapter 2.
That's the end of chapter 2.
Wow, can you guys hear that?
Yeah, is it the wind?
Yeah, what was that?
That's the wind.
That's crazy.
Oh, okay. Sound like an electric scooter.
Yeah, no, but it's just the wind is coming straight against this wall, and I know there's a bunch of leaks like in it because it's a manufactured home and the window wasn't put in very well. So I guess the wind is just screaming through my wall.
Yikes. Okay.
So yeah, don't mind me if I get whisked off to like Oz or something. Don't worry about it.
Just remember, there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Yeah.
There's no place like home ownership. There's no place like home ownership.
The wind's gonna blow the Wi-Fi out the window, and then you're gonna get dropped off the video. So pretty sure that's how it works.
You're gonna come back on. You're gonna be like, and you were there, and you were there.
Well, it's kind of funny too because when you emailed me back about these chapters, because I kind of went through the chapters in this book, because honestly, I always forget what happens in each book. It's such a mash of all the events.
Totally.
And then
I tried to include a little summary of each chapter just to like jog people's memory a little bit.
That was helpful.
But
it was just like I picked the 3 chapters, and you emailed me back and was like, "Oh, nobody wanted to be on these chapters, so it works." And I was like, "Oh my god, I picked the worst chapters to be on."
No, you just see something different in them than everyone else.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is, other than 1 or 2 chapters, there wasn't a lot of overlap. Generally, people picked unique chapters from everybody else, which is very interesting about this book because there is so much spread out over so much in this book.
I also want to get some characters that I haven't really been guested on. So, I mean, the Perrin one, the Egwene one, so want to mix it up a little bit there. So
this is definitely a Perrin chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a neat one because it's Perrin, but looking at everybody else and smelling everybody, so...
It's a whole cast chapter in that sense.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I love about Perrin chapters is essentially what you're doing is looking at the rest of the cast through an empath's eyes.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yes, it is a Perrin chapter, but it's always about the people around him more than, like, I think one of the things that people really get frustrated with is that it's very hard necessarily to identify, if you don't know already, what those characters are, why those characters are feeling that way.
It's hard
and so
to
it
put
becomes
it
this
together.
sort of, it's hard to put it together. And so,
sure.
That's one thing I'm hoping to do in this chapter is like, oh, you don't have to look up all the little results and details. We're going to tell you why the characters actually smell the way they smell.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, if you want to see Dumai's Wells again, here's another opportunity. So,
right.
I actually forgot
sure.
that's how the book starts because it's like the big, climax of last book, Lord of Chaos, and then it's like, oh, we're just gonna hit you with more Dumai's Wells like 2 or 3 or 4 times in the first like 4 chapters. But I mean, it makes sense.
I think that one of the reasons Dumai's Wells has such a great impact on us is because we do get the time to reflect and have the emotional impact from it. I wonder that without these chapters, if we wouldn't have glossed over it a little bit more.
Sure.
If he just like, if the next chapter was just them back in Kyrian and him dealing with, Aradia? Colvert?
Yeah.
Colvert.
Yeah, Colvert Saigon.
Yes. Colvert Saigon, then maybe this emotional impact would be severely depleted, and we'd be like, oh yeah, Dumai's Wells. I mean, I guess that didn't really impact him that much.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of also weird. I'm not sure how much we want to go into it just yet, but at Dumai's Wells, I remember reading that as like, I guess I was a teenager. I'm not exactly how old I was there, but you read the chapter and it's like a really cool battle sequence, and it's like the Ajaman, like you finally get to see what they're capable of, and it's like tearing people apart, and in some sense it's like really cool battle scene, but then RJ just like tears that away from you and like pulls all the glorification that you might have been feeling about like, oh, cool battle sequence, and is like, actually no, this was a slaughter and war is awful. So he just like doesn't let you feel those feelings very long at all.
Yeah, it has a lot of fallout directly and indirectly. And he really doesn't let you avoid that. Like, he lets a lot of stuff go, and like you have to put it together because it's obvious. This one he drives home.
Yeah, no, bad. War, bad.
Or bad.
Or bad.
Well, I'll go ahead and read us in to Chapter 2, The Butcher's Yard, and our symbol is the Nodding Ravens. There's a lot of ravens in this chapter.
Note, I am wearing the ravens in the video. I'm wearing the I'm nodding shirt with the ravens.
And since we're pointing out shirts, I'm wearing the Books to Prisoners. I'm supporting the Books to Prisoners charity that we did in SpoilerCon.
And I wasn't told that we were going to be on camera, so I have a hoodie with a tank top on underneath.
You look great.
Yeah,
You look great.
video's a new thing. We're stumbling through the
We're stumbling through it. Yeah.
It works.
We should be letting all the guests know,
Yeah.
probably.
I did. In the email it does say I was going to send you a Zoom link.
Oh,
and
I
we'd
know,
be
but I
doing
also
video.
told you I didn't read the email. So
That's also entirely not my fault.
that's also why I didn't know what time this was going to be.
I will not rag on Seth for you not reading the email.
But I was saying before we start recording, that's all right because you pull off a Pedro Pascal look very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we brought up a picture and it was a remarkable resemblance.
It's really true.
Yeah.
It's the highest compliment.
So if you're just listening to the podcast, just imagine me and Aradia talking to Pedro Pascal right now, talking to the Mandalorian. He's just
and then know that they're lying. So
And
It's art. I mean, it's fine.
I like how Keith said Aradia is Seth's eternal phone a friend. Like, yeah, if I don't know a fact, I'm like, and Aradia, what was that again?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I earn my keep around here.
I enjoy editing and being like, and Aradia, what was that? Having you say it and then having me repeat it and then just cutting you out so it sounds like I knew it all along. It's wonderful. I sound very smart. Thank you, Aradia.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that goes at the very beginning of this episode, but you already asked me to edit. So.
Oh no! Oh no!
All right, you can actually read us in now.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
Support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?